This is TWiT.
A longer term issue that Google's got to at some point deal with, that their main source of revenue is advertising, and it's mostly coming from the US and Europe. That's what's funding Google. Yet Google is supplying the internet to the whole world, and the growth of the internet in the whole world is not in the US and Europe. That's saturated. It's in developing countries, China, India, Brazil, where that isn't spending money on the kinds of stuff that Google advertises.
Well, and Google doesn't even have a foothold in some of these countries.
Right. But isn't there a disconnect between what's paying for the revenue, what's paying for the internet, and where the internet is growing? And isn't that a problem for Google in the long run?
Well, I think there's a fundamental challenge with all businesses, which is, one is just maintain the current business, and two is growing. And I think what you're articulating is a challenge to Google's growth going forward. I know Horace Deju of Simco has put forward a very provocative theory that, it's a known fact that Google's revenue growth correlates to the growth of internet penetration, and that's set to peak in 2015, I think. And he wonders if Google's growth is also set to peak for the same reason. I don't know. It's very possible. I guess yes, that plays it. It's the same thing again. To go back to something like Microsoft, the issue is not that they were shrinking. It's that the growth possibilities were seen to have become much more limited, and that's what kind of limited the stock price in a lot of ways. So I think it's a reasonable thing to ask about Google. That said, I mean, search is not going anywhere. It I think will remain for a very long time the best means of direct response advertising, which is advertising that's meant to elicit a purchase immediately.
So it's brand advertising that you think they're going to lose, and that's where the biggest money is spent, of course.
Exactly, and that's where I think they're going to have less of a foothold than people will think. Again, the analogy being like Microsoft with mobile. And I think to extend the analogy, it's just because the skills and what's needed to win in that category is actually a lot different than what's necessary to win in direct response advertising. And I just think Google's not in as strong a place either from a product perspective, like, Google Plus, not Facebook. But also, I think just more from a kind of a cultural approach perspective. And again, it doesn't make it a bad business. It makes it an amazing business that I'm not by any means trying to sell short, but does not necessarily mean they'll be as dominant in online advertising in 5 years or 10 years as they are today.
That's kind of the way of the world in technology. This stuff moves a lot faster. Horace has written a lot about the trajectory of successful companies, and it's changed in the tech business. The cycle's very short now. It's hard to stay on top.
The cycle's short. Google were the ones that brought DR, direct response, to the web, right? Prior to that, branding was what it was. And really, the web is best for branding, right? Podcasts are even better.
Yes, let's all say that, since we all have podcasts. Podcasts are even better.
Though. Podcasts are even better than the web.
It's no accident that Horace, that Ben have entered this market that you and I, Dave, have for so long embraced.
Totally. There's no better way that I've found. And we've been in the advertising business for 15 years, 16 years now, right? Yeah. But direct response works on the web. The problem with the web is you can track the click, right? Billboards still work, but nobody tracks the number of cars that crash into them as a success metric, right? One is one too many. It's true.
But that's why it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have a hard time selling brand advertising because it's hard to measure the impact.
And we get to thank Google for that, because Google was really smart. When they came out with the whole AdSense and AdWords thing, they didn't sell people on the results of the ad. They sold people on wanting a report that looked good, right? Which is how people are. And so Google built reports that showed you everything, but focused on the one number that Google charged you for, the click. Right. And this was brilliant. And it sucked for us, right? Because we were previously in the business of brand advertising and it worked. Yeah. You know, people saw lift, all this stuff was there. And then Google came in and said, hey, we can bring DR to the web. It's like, no, it's better elsewhere, because people, you know, the whole click and then buy thing, tracking the success of an ad by the number of people that click on it is so counterintuitive to the way advertising and branding and human minds work. And yet it's what the entire business wants to look at. And people are wrong to look at this, but it's total human nature to say, oh, there's a number I can finally look at. We've been advertising for hundreds of years, and suddenly now we decide that, oh, the most important thing is tracking the number of people that touched on my ad. No.